Okay, let's dig into this. Welcome, everyone, to our deep dive. We're going to unpack the source material that you've shared on this major surge in the Iran-Israel conflict.
Right.
Our mission, really, is to figure out what's happening right now, understand the background, just sticking to what these sources are telling us.
And the first thing that just jumps out, I think, is that core finding. This
Yeah.
isn't the shadow war anymore.
Exactly. The sources make it clear this is the first time we're seeing, like, open, direct military confrontation between them after decades of, proxies and covert stuff.
Yeah, decades. And the sources point to very specific recent events that pushed it into the open. First, June 13th, 2025, Israel's Operation Rising Lion.
Rising Lion, right. Direct airstrikes.
Direct airstrikes. The sources detail hits on Iranian targets, places near Tehran, Natanz, and Isfahan, described as nuclear or military-related facilities.
So, based on the material, Israel struck directly first in this latest round, and Iran's response, the sources paint that as pretty huge.
Oh, yeah. Significant is the word used. Iran reportedly launched over 370 ballistic missiles and drones. Big numbers.
Wow. Directly at Israeli cities.
That's what the sources state, yes. Targeting cities.
Okay, so the immediate aftermath described sounds, well, grim, and lots of conflicting claims in the material.
Very conflicting. You have Israel, according to the sources, claiming high casualties on the Iranian side from those initial strikes.
Yeah, I saw those figures cited over 200 military personnel, including IRGC commanders, even nuclear scientists, plus civilian casualties mentioned, too.
Exactly. Hundreds of civilians, the sources note. But then, Iran's retaliation, the missile and drone barrage, also reportedly caused fatalities and damage inside Israel.
But Israel pushed back on that, right, claiming they shot most of them down.
They did. The sources mention Israel's counterclaim, saying they intercepted a, quote, huge portion of the threats, basically trying to show they still control the skies despite the scale of the attack.
And beyond the strikes themselves, there's the human cost mentioned. Mass evacuations, hospitals overwhelmed, especially in Tehran.
Yes, the sources touch on that humanitarian dimension. Evacuations, strained medical systems in Iran. And, importantly, they note this isn't happening in a vacuum.
Right. The ongoing situation in Gaza is mentioned too. Rising death toll, aid shortages. It's
Yes.
a lot happening at once.
It really is. And the historical context provided in the sources is, I think, fascinating. Because this direct clash didn't just, appear. It's built on that long shadow conflict.
Since 1979, the Iranian Revolution.
Precisely. We're talking sabotage. The sources mention things like Stuxnet, that cyber attack on nuclear facilities.
Yeah.
Targeted assassinations, and of course, years of proxy warfare.
Using groups like Hezbollah, Hamas.
Exactly. Those are the key examples cited in the material. So it's a long-standing conflict, but the method has fundamentally changed now.
And the sources kind of trace the steps that led to this shift, this escalation.
Yes, they map it out. It seems to have accelerated post-October 2023, after the Hamas attack intensified everything. Then came Iran's first sort of direct attack in April 2024, Operation True Promise.
Followed by Israeli responses in Syria, wasn't it?
Right. And then another spike in October 2024, more Iranian missiles after alleged Israeli assassinations, which then triggered more Israeli retaliation, each one seemingly pushing the envelope further.
So what do the sources identify as the real root causes, the drivers behind this persistence, and especially this shift to direct conflict?
Well, a few key things stand out in the material. First, the nuclear program. That's absolutely central.
Israel is seeing it as an existential threat.
That's how the sources frame Israel's perspective. Iran, meanwhile, consistently claims peaceful intentions. That disagreement is just a constant source of friction, according to the material.
Then there's the regional influence struggle.
Definitely. The sources detail Iran's support for various non-state actors, which Israel views as direct security threats, expanding Iranian influence right up to its borders.
And that critical point, we started with the shift itself, from proxies and covert ops to hitting each other's actual territory.
That's presented as the real game changer in the sources, yeah. It escalates the stakes enormously.
And this is obviously causing major waves globally. The U.S. involvement is mentioned.
Oh, yes. The sources detail U.S. deployment of assets refueling planes, warships, subs, indicating active engagement. Publicly, it's described as a balancing act, affirming support for Israel while also cautioning Iran against further escalation.
And broader global reactions, high concern.
Extremely high based on the sources. You see G7 leaders mentioned, backing Israel's self-defense but urging restraint. There's a palpable fear of a wider war.
Leading to things like evacuations, airlines rerouting.
Exactly. Practical impacts showing just how nervous the international community is.
Okay, so looking forward, what's the outlook presented in the material? What might happen next?
The sources suggest the risk of more targeted strikes is still quite high. The framing seems to be Israel might want to keep hitting capabilities, perhaps related to the nuclear program, to delay it.
While Iran might look for ways to retaliate but carefully, trying to avoid an all-out war.
That seems to be the dynamic described. Careful retaliation. Diplomacy is mentioned as, well, tenuous. There might be hints of talks, but the military actions seem to have the momentum right now.
And the risk of this spreading? The sources emphasize that, don't they? The proxy angle.
Absolutely. The material is explicit about the potential for groups in Lebanon, Yemen, Syria, Gaza, backed by Iran, to become more active fronts that could really widen the conflict zone.
With huge implications for, well, everything. Energy, shipping.
Global energy markets, critical maritime routes like the Red Sea or Hormuz, and of course the safety of civilians across the entire region. The risks are enormous.
So this deep dive really underscores it. The shift to open, direct conflict between Iran and Israel is a massive, dangerous development. The sources paint a picture of extreme volatility, severe humanitarian risks, and huge regional instability.
Which leaves us, and you, with a really significant question to consider. Pulling all this source material together, given these deep-rooted drivers we've discussed and the complex web of regional processes involved, just how difficult might it actually be to contain this conflict now, especially after these direct attacks? And what could the cascading consequences look like across the Middle East and maybe even globally?